I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Last week, NASA's chief scientist said NASA is close to making an announcement about life on Mars and that we, the human race, are not ready for it.
Yeah,
Come on, that's saying that we know, but we're not going to tell you.
So first, I'm worried that I'm ready for it, and that might mean I'm not part of the human race, given the logic of that sentence.
So you're ready for it?
Oh, totally. No. So astrophysically, it is practically as interesting if we found mats of microbial life as it would if it was like a green alien with a ray gun, because it's life somewhere off of Earth. That's the boundary we'd be crossing in our quest to convert ignorance into knowledge.
That's the boundary we'd be crossing in our quest to convert ignorance into knowledge.
Do you think that it would unite humanity?
Good point. So I don't know for sure, but I can tell you, given how tribal we have all been, especially in recent years, where we are finding reasons to separate ourselves and then fight, to find life somewhere else might be the first occasion to unify Earth as a tribe of its own.
When Congress passed the $2.3 trillion COVID relief bill recently, there was a lot of yapping about how lousy it was. But personally, I am very, very, very excited about one thing buried in the 5,600-page bill that has so far gotten very little yapping. And that is the measure which requires the Pentagon to release a report containing information about its UFO task force within 6 months. Yeah, that's right. Buried in the COVID relief bill is a mandate for our government to yap about what it knows about UFOs. This comes after the Pentagon has released some amazing videos over the past couple of years recorded by our military of UFOs, or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, as they're now being called. They've released all this amazing footage that simply cannot be explained by anything we currently know about physics, which makes it seem like the government is actually really seriously getting ready to yap. According to the bill, the report must include a detailed analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena data and intelligence reporting collected or held by almost all of our country's intelligence agencies. If the executive branch honors this measure, we'll actually get to know in the next 6 months what our government knows about UFOs. And you thought 2020 was pretty crazy.
My submission is that what we are looking at is truly, by definition, exotic technologies, beyond next generation technologies.
Mr. President, as we wrap up here, are there UFOs?
Well, I'm going to have to check on that. I will tell you this. We now have created a military, the likes of which we've never had before in terms of equipment, the weapons that we have, and hopefully, hope to God, we never have to use them.
And hopefully, hope to God, we never have to use it. And hopefully, hope to God, we never have to use it.
The newest branch of our military is called the Space Force.
To secular researchers, they are now saying that these beings are not coming from outer space, far across the universe. They said they're coming from inner space. They're coming from another dimensions, and that's just happens to be what the angels and demons do. Interesting. In fact, they say there's no need to entertain this thought that they're coming from outside Earth. Listen to this. This is secular researchers, and this is Flying Saucer Review, folks. This is a secular entity. Gordon Creighton, the editor, he said, quote, "There seems to be no evidence yet that any of these craft or beings originate from where? Outer space," okay? Brad Steiger says, "We are dealing with a multi-dimensional paraphysical phenomenon, which is largely indigenous to where? Planet Earth." And finally, Arthur C. Clarke, he says, "One theory that can no longer be taken very seriously is that UFOs are what? Interstellar spaceships, i.e. that they come from outer space. We should not even entertain that idea because that's not what these secular researchers have witnessed over decades of research." We are dealing with a yet unrecognized level of consciousness independent of man, but closely linked to the Earth. I do not believe any more secular research that UFOs are simply the spacecraft of some race of extraterrestrial visitors. This notion is too simplistic to explain their appearance, the frequency of their manifestations through recorded history, and an impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conceptions of what? Demons. That's secular research, folks. And he goes on. He says the medical examination to which abductees are said to have been subjected to, often accompanied by sadistic manipulation, listen, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with who? Demons. He says, in fact, the symbolic display seen by the abductees is identical to the type of initiations ritual or astral voyage that is embedded in the occult traditions of every culture on the planet. He says, thus, the structure of abduction stories is identical to occult initiation rituals. UFO researcher Lynn Cato said, a large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical, not science. He said it deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist or ghost manifestations or possession. Shocker. He says many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidences that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomena. Secular researcher. Dr. Pierre Guin, he's one of the eminent ones in the French Council of Science research, says UFO behavior is more akin to what? Magic than it is to physics as we know it. He says the modern UFO knots and the demons of past days are probably what? Identical. And one more, John Keel, outside of Jacques Vallée, this guy's probably one of the most informed secular guys on the planet dealing with this topic. And here's what he says. He said the manifestations and occurrences described in this imposing literature on demonology are similar, if not entirely identical, to the UFO phenomena itself. The UFO manifestations seem to be, by and large, merely minor variations of the age-old demonological phenomena.
The first time I met him, that space-based weapons were a dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, untestable, unworkable idea. And that the last card that was being held was the extraterrestrial enemy card. The intensity with which he said that made me realize that he knew something that he was too afraid to mention. He was too afraid to talk about it. He would not tell me the details. I'm not sure that I would have absorbed them if he had told me the details or even believed him in 1974. But there was no question that that man knew, and had a need to know, I found out later. There's no doubt in my mind that Wernher von Braun knew about the extraterrestrial issue. And when he explained to me the reasons for why weapons were going to be put into space, the enemies against whom we were going to build these weapons, and that all of that was a lie, and when he mentioned the extraterrestrial card, that extraterrestrials, aliens he called them, were going to be identified as the final enemy against whom we were going to build space-based weapons back in '74, the way he said it to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he knew something that he was too afraid to talk about. Wernher von Braun never spoke to me about any of the details that he knew, or might have known, or thought about related to extraterrestrials, except that extraterrestrials were one day going to be identified as an enemy against whom we are going to have to build an enormous space-based weapon system. Even though he didn't give me the details, however, the look in his eyes made it clear to me that he knew that there was something going on that was a big secret that he could not divulge. Wernher von Braun actually told me that the spin was a lie, that the premise for space-based weaponry, the reasons that were going to be given, the enemies that we were going to identify, were all based on a lie.